I want you to picture that movie you love, that spoke to your heart, the one that makes you feel something other films don't. That film consists of a language, sounds and images communicating ideas to create magic. Let's have a go at exploring 10 of these progressively difficult techniques. And where better to shoot this video than the movie capital of the world itself? Hollywood, baby.
Number one, we're actually doing right now, and that is the tripod shot. In fact, you don't even need a tripod to do it. Your camera just needs to be static. Put it on top of a book, you know, as long as it's static and it can point at what you want it to point at. What I love about this technique is that it's so simple, yet it forces you to think harder about framing. I can't move the camera, so I have to depend on composition. At number two, we've got the rack focus. It's relatively simple compared to the ones I'm going to be going into later, so I'll try and make this relatively quick. You're changing your focus from one point to another. You can do it between characters or objects or whatever you want. On an emotional basis, choosing to rack focus over a cut might add more suspense to the scene, but it principally acts to reveal something to the audience. There's a theme in these earlier techniques, and they address the delivery of information. Very important. Number three, J and L cuts. This is our first technique in the post-production area. This is an editing technique, but essentially,
the J cut is when the audio from the next shot comes in before the cut. Hello, darling. How are you? Yeah, have a good one. All right. Bye-bye now. These techniques can be used to take the audience from one scene to another in creative ways.
This technique actually gets its name from what it looks like in an editing software. This is an L cut, so oh, fuck it, I'll just explain it with a screen recording.
Yes, here we are, look at that. You can see it's a J cut, the audio comes in, then the video. Great, and then there's an L cut. The audio goes into the next shot. Easy peasy. Number 4, match cuts. We're getting into the juicy stuff now. This is also a transitional tool. By keeping an element consistent through a cut, we pay more attention to it.
Perhaps the most famous match cut of them all. The bone to space station in Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. He takes us through thousands of years in a single cut, which I think is pretty cool. Notably, there was an homage in the Barbie film. This transition, I think we can all agree, would not have been as hard-hitting if it weren't for the use of that match cut. How do we frame the passage of time? You can use some dissolves, dissolving out and dissolving back in again. You can show some footage of a clock, time passing, the pages of a calendar turning over and over. But here, he was taking one element and keeping it consistent. Don't sleep on sound. You should always allow some time for sound design. When we talk about cinematic, we think visually. If your sound is better, the movie looks better. Don't sleep on sound, yeah? Visuals are 50, sound is 50. Why are you only concentrating on 50%?
Seismic charges. Stand by.
I'm gonna say something a bit controversial right now. Come closer. Sound is more important than the visuals. Disagree with me in the comments if you want, but I'm very unlikely to change my mind. Some silhouettes are more intense than others, but the general gist is to obscure the subject and elevate the dramatic effect. You feel me? The essence and core of a silhouette, the background, is lighter than the subject or the foreground. The easiest and quickest way to achieve a silhouette, I think, is in your own home, during the day. Open the blinds so you have a window there with light pouring in, and just expose for the outside. If you expose your camera to the outside, then the subject or the person in the house will probably be a lot more dark. When I was in film school, my cinematography teacher actually told me that if you want a character to seem like they're in complete darkness, obviously the scene can't be completely dark because we won't see anything. So what you do instead is you subtly light the space behind them. As the audience, we put two and two together. That's when the darkness is suggested. In filmmaking as a language, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be suggested because doing it for real wouldn't work on screen. Fuck yeah, that's some knowledge. I felt clever saying that. If you remember back when you were at school and your English teacher was asking you why the door is blue, your English teacher, unfortunately, and it's taken me years to realize, had a point. Even if these connections with color seem a bit far-fetched, just trust that it can have an emotional effect on your audience. We have the melancholy of blue or green. We have the fiery heat of red. These are two spectrums, do you know what I mean? And they do have their place. When it comes to grading, you can say a lot about a character's emotions just by the tones that the image is colored with.
Hey, look at that sign. As you can probably tell, it's not real. I used the power of VFX to alter the world around me.
My little VFX shot pales in comparison to what the pros do. Painting out elements on screen, de-aging people, and doing water simulations, you know? This is a spectacular marriage between art and science that has exploded in just my lifetime. 50 of the highest grossing films of all time either heavily feature VFX or are completely computer animated. But deep down, I think we all know there's something else that truly gets audiences into cinemas and excited about movies.
Performance. How can a story be told without life? Acting is simply playing pretend, and yet so few have mastered it. Acting is what we can relate to in every film. It's why I can resonate with Chiyo Sakamoto in Memoirs of a Geisha to Luke Skywalker. I feel what they feel. I cry when they cry, laugh when they laugh. Performance turns a visual medium into a human experience. Actors are the soul of filmmaking, and whether you're in front of or behind the camera, we should always pay extra special attention to the craft that is the most personal of them all. This is the feature film that I have started writing, and so at number 10, telling a compelling story is the hardest and most important practice of them all.
Filmmaking is one of the most expensive artistic mediums in the world. And what's so ironic is that to tell a story is completely free, either by telling it to your friends or sitting down with a pen and paper and writing it. Obviously, you have to pay the price of a pen and paper, but I think we all know those are quite accessible. Read between the lines, bitch. Pick up a pen and paper, and you can make anything. Your imagination is the limit. It's actually getting out there and making it. That's the catch. Get everything out of your head and put it on paper. Go through a few drafts and plan. I put this technique last in this video because A, it's quite dramatic, bit of an anticlimax. I enjoy that. And B, because even the best filmmakers in the world still get this wrong. So remember that film that spoke to your heart? Well, it did it with its story. And all the techniques I mentioned here today were there to tell it. Signing out from Hollywood, California. I'll see you in the next video.
Let's fucking go home. This took way too long.